I wake up every morning before the bell rings. Not because I want to, but because sleep doesn't stay with me anymore. The room is always the same pale walls, the same quiet hum of the heater, the same old sofa in front of me, where I sit every day with my hands folded, pretending I'm waiting for something, when in truth, I've been waiting for someone for 5 long years. This place is called an old age home. They say it gently like it's a safe word, but to me it feels like a waiting room where time forgot how to move. I sit on the front sofa every morning after breakfast. The staff think I like that spot because of the window. They don't know I sit there because if someone ever walks in, I want to be the first to see them, especially if it's my son. 5 years. 5 birthdays he missed. 5 winters I spent staring at falling snow, wondering if he was warm. 5 years of explaining to strangers why no one ever visits me. Sometimes they ask, "Do you have children?" I always say, "Yes, I have 1 son." They usually smile and say, "Oh, he must be busy." I smile back. I never tell them the truth, that my son hasn't seen me in 5 years, that I don't know where he lives, that I don't even know if he still remembers the sound of my voice. The clock on the wall ticks loudly here. Every second feels heavier than the last. I watch other residents receive visitors, daughters bringing flowers, sons bringing groceries, grandchildren running through the halls, laughing too loudly. I pretend not to look, but my eyes always betray me. I wonder what it feels like to be hugged without asking, to have someone say, "Mom, I'm here." Instead, I sit on the sofa, holding a photograph. It's old. The edges are worn. The colors are fading. But his smile is still there. My son. In the picture, he's young. Too young to know how cruel life can be. Too young to know that one day he would disappear from his mother's life without saying goodbye. I trace his face with my finger every day. I whisper his name quietly, so no one hears. Some days I blame myself. Maybe I said the wrong thing. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe loving him too deeply pushed him away. Sometimes I imagine him standing at the entrance, tall, older, regret in his eyes. I imagine him saying, "I'm sorry, Mom." But imagination is cruel. It gives hope without promises. One afternoon, while I was sitting on the sofa, staring at the door like always, a nurse came toward me. She smiled politely and said, "You have a visitor." My heart stopped. I almost laughed at myself for believing it. "Visitors don't come for me." I asked softly, "Are you sure?" She nodded. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking. Not from age, but from fear, because hope is terrifying when you've been disappointed for too long. As I walked toward the visitor room, my chest felt tight. My hands were cold. I told myself not to expect anything. And then I saw him, standing near the doorway, older, thinner, eyes heavy with something I couldn't name. For a moment, we just stared at each other. 5 years collapsed into a single breath. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to scream his name, but my body wouldn't move. And then he spoke. "Mom." That one word broke me. His voice wasn't the same. It carried weight, pain. He looked at me like someone who had been drowning for years, and before I could say anything, before I could ask where he had been, he said something that made my heart sink. "Mom, I didn't come sooner because I was hiding something." And in that moment, I knew, whatever secret he carried, it was the reason my life had been frozen in this place for 5 years, and I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. I closed my eyes and let the memories wash over me. I remember the first time I held him in my arms. He was so small, so fragile, so perfect. His tiny fingers curled around mine, and I promised him, without knowing how life would twist our paths, that I would always protect him. Those early days were not easy. Life was hard, but I never let it touch him. I worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs at once, just to make sure he had clothes that fit, shoes that didn't hurt, and food on the table. Every evening, I came home exhausted. But the moment I saw him smile, all the pain vanished. There were times I sacrificed so much, just so he could have a little more. I remember skipping meals so he could eat properly. I remember walking miles in the winter just to find the cheapest shoes, the warmest jacket. I remember nights lying awake, listening to him breathe, wondering if I had done enough to keep him safe. When he was 5, he caught a cold that turned into a fever. I was terrified. I held him in my arms all night, whispering prayers into the dark. I thought I might lose him. But when morning came, he opened his eyes, smiled weakly, and said, "Mom, I'm okay." Even then, I knew my life would always belong to him. School brought new challenges. I remember the first day he went. He clutched my hand tightly as we walked to the gate. He looked so scared, so unsure. "Don't worry, my love," I whispered. "I'll be right here when you need me." And I was. I always was. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. Schoolwork, friends, hobbies. He grew fast. Too fast sometimes. I tried to guide him, to advise him, to teach him about honesty, kindness, patience. I wanted him to be strong, to face the world without fear. But sometimes I wondered if I had let him down. I remember one evening. He came home crying. A friend had teased him, called him names, made him feel small. I held him and whispered, "Never let anyone make you feel less than you are. You are my son, and you are enough." He looked up at me with tear-stained cheeks and nodded. He believed me. He always believed me. There were sacrifices, though, so many I can barely count. Nights I went without sleep so he could study. Days I went without food so he could eat better. Dreams I let go of so his dreams could grow. I often wondered if he noticed, if he ever truly understood the cost of love. I cried that night. Not because he was angry with me, but because I knew one day the world would test him in ways I could not shield him from. I knew that someday he would have to make choices without me by his side, and I was terrified of that day. But I never imagined it would come sooner than I thought. I think back to that summer, when he left for his first trip without me. He was 16. I remember standing at the gate, waving, my heart heavy. I tried to smile. I tried to be brave. I told him, "Remember, no matter where you go, my love follows you." He smiled, waved, and ran toward the bus. And in that moment, I felt a quiet emptiness. A whisper that life was moving forward, even as I wanted it to stand still. Those were the happiest years. And yet, I can't help but remember the moments of fear, the nights I stayed awake, wondering if I had done enough. The moments when I knew the world was cruel, but I had to be stronger. Not for me, for him. Because being a mother is not about comfort. It's about sacrifice. It's about love so deep that it hurts, even when the child is too young to understand it. And I wonder now, after 5 long years of silence, does he remember any of this? Does he remember the nights I stayed awake? The times I cried quietly after he went to sleep? Does he remember the sacrifices I made so he could have a better life? Does he remember the mother who loved him more than the world itself? I clutch the photograph in my hands. I look at his young face frozen in time. I whisper, "I never stopped loving you, my son. And I hope he never stopped loving me either." I still remember that day like it happened yesterday, even though it has been years. The sunlight was bright, almost harsh, streaming through the windows of our little living room. He was 17 at the time, tall for his age, shoulders broad, eyes burning with something I didn't recognize. He had grown so fast, and sometimes I felt I couldn't keep up with him. He came home from school that day, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed through the hallway, startling me. I called out, but he didn't answer. I walked to him and saw his face twisted with anger, frustration, and hurt. I didn't understand at first. "Why are you always interfering, Mom?" he shouted. I froze. His voice was louder than I expected. I didn't recognize the boy in front of me. The one who had always run to me when he was scared. The one who had trusted me completely. "What do you mean?" I asked softly, my voice trembling. "You never let me do anything. You're always telling me what to do, how to think, what's right, what's wrong." I felt my heart sink. I tried to explain, to reason, but he wouldn't let me speak. I want to make my own decisions. You don't trust me," he yelled. The truth was, I didn't always trust him. Not because I doubted him, but because I had seen the world. I knew its dangers. I knew its lies. I knew its cruelty. And I wanted to protect him. But my words didn't matter. He stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard I thought it might break. I stood there frozen, staring at the door. My chest ached. My hands shook. I wanted to call him back. I wanted to apologize. But I couldn't. Something inside me told me to let him go. Just for a moment, so he could see the consequences of his actions. Days passed. I didn't hear from him. Not a word. My phone remained silent. My heart grew heavy with every passing hour. I walked through the house, looking at the empty spaces where he used to be, imagining him out there, somewhere, angry at me, hurt, and refusing to forgive. Then came the letters. At first, they were short, angry, hurtful, blaming me for everything. "You never understand me. You always control me. You don't care about what I want." Each word felt like a knife through my heart. I tried to write back, tried to explain, tried to reach him. But somehow, he never received my letters. Weeks turned into months. The silence grew unbearable. I went through the motions of life, feeding myself with memories of happier days, but nothing could replace his presence. I remember standing at his bedroom window one night, looking out at the street where I had dropped him off countless times, hoping he would return, hoping he would come back and tell me it had all been a mistake. But he didn't. The months became years. 5 long years. Every day, I would sit on the sofa in the old age home, holding his photograph, imagining the boy he used to be, wondering if he still remembered the mother who had loved him more than her own life. I would ask myself over and over, did I fail him? Did I push him away? I replayed every argument in my mind, searching for a moment I could change, a word I should have said differently. But the truth was, life doesn't give us second chances like that. And yet, I never gave up hope, because hope is a strange thing. It lives in the cracks of our hearts, even when everything else has fallen apart. Even in the darkest nights, I whispered to the wind, "Come back to me, my son. Come back." And then, slowly, the memories of our happier times would come to me, comforting me. I remembered him learning to ride his bike. I remembered our first trip to the park, his laughter echoing like music in the air. I remembered the nights I stayed awake, holding him close when he was sick, and the mornings he would wake with a smile that could light up the world. All those memories became my strength. They reminded me why I had to survive, why I had to keep waiting, why I had to believe he would return, no matter how impossible it seemed. But the anger lingered too. A silent ache that sometimes made my chest tight. A part of me resented him for leaving, for disappearing, for letting 5 years pass without a single call, without a single word. I knew deep down that he wasn't a bad person. I knew that life sometimes takes people in directions they don't want to go. But that knowledge didn't make the emptiness in my heart any less real. And then came the day I received a letter, one I had never expected. It wasn't long. It wasn't emotional. but it carried a weight I couldn't ignore. "Mom," it read. "I'm sorry. I wish I could explain. I wish I could tell you everything, but I can't. Not yet. Please wait for me." I read it over and over. My hands shook. My heart raced. I cried for hours, alone in my room, clutching the letter as if it were the only piece of him left in the world. That was the first sign. The first sign that he hadn't forgotten me. That somewhere, somehow, he still cared. But the years that followed were not easy. I watched him from afar, sometimes glimpsing him on social media, sometimes hearing about him through friends. He was growing up. He was making a life I wasn't a part of. And yet, I held on to that letter. I held on to the hope that one day he would come back. That one day I would see him standing in front of me, older, changed, carrying the burdens of life and the secrets that had kept him away. And that day would change everything. Because sometimes the heart knows truths the mind cannot yet understand. Sometimes love survives even the longest silence. Sometimes the pain we endure is not the end, but the beginning of something far greater. The first few months after he left were the hardest. The house felt like a shell, empty, cold, and silent. Every corner reminded me of him. The little toys he had left behind, his school books stacked neatly on the table, the worn-out sneakers by the door. They all screamed his absence louder than any words could. I tried to keep myself busy. I cleaned the house from morning until night. I cooked his favorite meals, even though he wasn't there to eat them. I folded his tiny clothes, organizing them in drawers he would never open again. But nothing could fill the void. The nights were worse. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing the ticking of the clock as if it were counting down the time he had been gone. I tried to distract myself with books, television, sewing, even praying longer than usual. But no matter what I did, my mind kept wandering back to him. I replayed our argument over and over. I wished I had said something different. I wished I had held him tighter, listened longer, understood better. But the truth was, I couldn't change the past. The silence grew heavier with each passing day. The first month passed, then the second. My heart ached with every letter I didn't receive, every phone call that never came, every knock on the door that wasn't him. Friends and neighbors tried to comfort me. They would say, "Children grow up. They need space. You must let him find his own path. You can't control everything." I nodded politely, smiled faintly, and went back to my lonely room, because no words, no advice, no understanding could replace the presence of my son. I remember the first time I saw him from afar after he left. I didn't know it was him at first. He had grown taller, broader, and his face was harder now. There was something in his eyes that wasn't the boy I remembered. But the way he looked, it felt familiar, like a faint echo of the past calling me back. I didn't approach him. I didn't want to. I wasn't ready. The days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I began writing letters to him, even though I wasn't sure he would ever read them. I wrote about my days, my fears, my dreams, and the memories of him that I carried everywhere. I poured my heart onto paper, folding each letter with care, tucking them into envelopes that sat unopened in a drawer. Sometimes I would take one out and read it aloud, whispering his name like a prayer. "Please come back," I would say, my voice trembling. "Please don't forget me." There were moments of hope, brief and fragile. A friend of mine once told me she had seen a young man who looked like him at the market. I ran there, my heart pounding, only to find it wasn't him. And yet, even those false glimpses were a comfort. They reminded me that he existed somewhere, living, breathing, surviving. I began noticing little signs everywhere. A familiar laugh in the park. A silhouette walking past my window. A voice on the phone that sounded almost like his. I clung to these moments, no matter how fleeting, no matter how uncertain, because hope is a lifeline. One day, I received a small package in the mail. There was no note, only a small handmade bracelet he had made when he was 10. I held it in my hands, feeling the rough threads, remembering how carefully he had braided them, how proudly he had shown it to me. Tears streamed down my face. It wasn't him, but it was a reminder that he had been here, that he had loved me once, that maybe he still did. I began to visit the places we used to go together, the park where he first learned to ride his bike, the small bakery where he loved chocolate muffins, the library where we spent hours reading stories together. Each place was empty without him. Yet in my heart, I could feel his presence, like a shadow lingering just beyond sight. I met other mothers in the neighborhood, some who had lost contact with their children for years, some who had never had the chance to hold them close. We shared stories, tears, and comfort, but my heart always returned to him. Every day, I sat on the sofa at home, holding his photograph. Sometimes I would close my eyes and imagine him sitting beside me, telling me about his day, asking for advice, asking for comfort. I whispered to the empty room, "I know you're out there somewhere. I know you're safe. I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes." The first year was a blur of emotions: loneliness, sadness, anger, regret, hope. I lost track of time. I didn't notice the seasons changing outside my window. I didn't notice my hair graying further, my hands shaking more often, my knees aching as I walked to the sofa each morning. All I knew was that I was waiting for him to come back, waiting for the moment I would see his face again, waiting for the day I could hear the words I longed for. "Mom, I'm sorry. I've missed you." And even in my despair, I held on to the tiniest shred of hope, because hope is not a choice. It is not a decision. It is a heartbeat that refuses to die, even when the world seems determined to silence it. And so I waited. I waited through tears, through sleepless nights, through the ache in my chest that never seemed to fade. And I promised myself that when he returned, no matter how changed he was, no matter how much time had passed, I would forgive him. I would hold him. I would tell him everything I had kept inside for 5 long years. I would remind him of the love that had never wavered, no matter the silence, no matter the absence. Because that is what love is. Even in absence, it survives. Even in silence, it speaks. Even in heartbreak, it waits. And so, the first year passed. The house remained quiet. The sofa remained empty. The clock ticked. But in my heart, I never stopped waiting. It had been nearly 2 years since he had left. 2 years of silence. 2 years of empty rooms, quiet mornings, and nights that felt like they would never end. Yet, in the middle of that endless waiting, I began noticing things. Small, almost imperceptible signs that made my heart race. At first, I tried to dismiss them. A shadow in the corner of my eye. A familiar laugh in the distance. A newspaper left in my mailbox that seemed oddly placed. I told myself I was imagining things. The smell of his favorite cologne lingering in the air when no one had been there. I began seeing patterns everywhere. Every time I walked past the park where we used to spend hours together, I caught glimpses of a young man watching from afar. Always watching, always silent. I tried to tell myself it was coincidence. It had to be. But I couldn't deny the growing sense of being observed. One night, I was reading a letter I had written him months ago. I had folded it carefully, kept it in a drawer where only I could reach it. As I held it, I heard a soft knock at the door. My heart stopped. I didn't move. I waited. The knock came again, soft, deliberate. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. I opened the door slowly. Nothing. Just the empty corridor, silent except for the hum of the heater. I closed the door, shaking. My hands were trembling. I sank back onto the sofa. And then I realized, this is how hope and fear feel when they are tangled together. Every day after that, I became hyper-aware of my surroundings. Every visitor, every passerby, every sound made me jump. A bus stopping outside, a shadow crossing the window, a young man buying something at the corner store. It could be him. It had to be him. I started leaving little messages where only he could find them. A note under the vase by the window. A letter tucked in the book he used to love. I didn't know if he would see them. I didn't know if he even wanted to. But I had to try. I blinked. And when I looked again, he was gone. I wanted to run, to chase him, to call his name. But I didn't. I just sat there, frozen, hoping that he would come back, hoping that someday the universe would conspire to bring him to me. The days after that, strange things kept happening. The sound of a door closing softly when no one was home. Footsteps in the hallway. The faint scent of his favorite perfume, cologne, I mean, lingering in rooms he hadn't entered. Standing just outside the window, watching, silent, he looked at me. And in that moment, I knew he hadn't forgotten. He hadn't abandoned me. He had been out there, somewhere, carrying secrets, carrying fear, carrying the weight of his own life. But now he was here. And the truth he had been hiding. It was coming. The day he returned started like any other, or at least I tried to make it seem that way. I woke up early, as always, my hands trembling slightly as I brewed tea. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, soft and warm. But it didn't bring comfort. It never does anymore. Not since he left. Not since the first argument that shattered our lives. I sat on the front sofa, holding his photograph, tracing his young face with a trembling finger. I whispered softly, as if speaking into the wind could somehow reach him. "Come back to me, my son. Please." I didn't know if he would. I had imagined this moment so many times that I feared it would never feel real when it finally came. And then I heard it, the soft creak of the front door. I froze. My heart raced so fast it felt like it might leap out of my chest. My hands gripped the edge of the sofa so tightly that my knuckles turned white. A shadow appeared in the doorway. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My mind was screaming, "It's him! It's really him!" But my body was rooted to the spot, as if fear and hope had locked me in place. His voice was soft, almost breaking. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to throw my arms around him and never let go, but something held me back, a cautiousness I didn't understand. "Mom," he repeated, a little louder this time. I've missed you." I couldn't speak. I could only stare. My chest was tight, my throat dry, my heart pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. And then I noticed it. The way he carried himself. The way his shoulders slumped slightly, weighed down by something invisible. The careful way he avoided touching anything in the house, as if he feared disturbing the memory of his childhood. Where have you been?" I finally whispered, my voice shaking. He hesitated. I could see him fighting with himself, wrestling with words he had kept locked inside for years. "I've missed you too, Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "More than I can ever explain." For a moment, we stood there, frozen, staring at each other. 5 years of absence, 5 years of silence, 5 years of pain, all collapsing into a single breath. And then he did something I didn't expect. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. His hands were shaking as he held it out to me. I wrote this for you, he said softly. I took it from him, unfolding it with trembling fingers. It was a letter, written in his hand, messy, hurried, but filled with words I had longed to hear. I've made mistakes, he wrote. I've hurt you in ways I can never undo. I've been lost, Mom. I've been afraid. But I never stopped loving you. I never stopped thinking about you. Please. I need you to understand that I had no choice. Not yet. I held the letter to my chest, sobbing, and then he whispered the words I had been waiting for, without knowing it, for 5 long years. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. But even as I felt relief, a part of me tightened in fear. There was something else, something he wasn't saying. His eyes darted away for a moment, a shadow crossing his face. A hesitation. I asked softly, "What is it? What are you hiding?" He looked at me, the weight of years and secrets pressing down on him, and said, "Nothing. That silence. That heavy, suffocating silence told me everything. There was a secret. A dark secret. Something so heavy that he had stayed away for years rather than face it with me. And in that moment, I realized the reunion I had dreamed of for so long was only the beginning of a story I was not yet ready to hear, the beginning of a truth that would shake the very foundation of our lives. I reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. He let me hold it, trembling, fragile and real. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he whispered again, and I knew that whatever came next, whatever secret he had been hiding, I would face it. Because I had waited for this moment my entire life. And now, finally, he was here. He sat across from me, in the same chair he used to sit in as a boy. The room felt smaller somehow, filled with memories that weren't enough to fill the silence. His hands were folded on his lap, but they trembled slightly. His eyes avoided mine, glancing at the floor, at the photographs, at everything but me. I wanted to reach for him, to ask him to speak, but I felt the weight of his fear, the hesitation in his heart. Finally, he spoke, softly, almost a whisper. "Mom, there's something I've kept from you. Something I didn't want you to know, for your own safety." I felt my chest tighten. My heart raced so fast I thought it might burst. "Safety," I whispered. "What do you mean? What happened?" He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple moving with the effort. I got involved with people I shouldn't have," he said finally. "Dangerous people. People who could hurt you if they knew I had a mother they could threaten." I gasped. My mind spun. Dangerous people? My son? He had always been so sweet, so innocent. "How could this have happened?" he continued, his voice trembling. "I thought I could handle it on my own. I thought I could protect you by staying away. I didn't want you to be dragged into my mistakes. So, I left. I ran. I disappeared. Because I knew it was the only way to keep you safe." I felt tears streaming down my face, hot and unstoppable. "Oh, my son," I whispered. "Why didn't you trust me? I would have faced them with you. I would have fought with you. I would have done anything to protect you." He shook his head slowly. "No, Mom. You have no idea. The people I got involved with, they're not ordinary. They're dangerous in ways I can't explain. I thought, if I stayed away, you'd be safe. That I could solve this, and then come back to you." I reached for his hands. They were cold, trembling. I held them tightly. Do you realize what you've done to me? I whispered. Do you realize the pain of 5 years of silence? The nights I cried for you? The emptiness in my heart? He closed his eyes, guilt written across his face. I know, Mom. I know. And I'm sorry. More than I can ever explain. But I had no choice. Not then. Not until I knew I could come back without putting you in danger. The weight of his words crushed me. My heart ached with relief that he was safe, and terror that he had faced dangers I couldn't even imagine. I can't even begin to understand, I whispered. You left me, my son. You left me in the dark. And now you say it was for my safety? How can I forgive that? He opened his eyes, his gaze piercing mine. Because, Mom, I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Everything I did for you. Even if it hurt you. Even if it broke your heart. I had to come back to you, and now I can. And I promise, I will never leave you again. I wanted to scream, to cry, to collapse into his arms. But I couldn't, because there was more. I could feel it. The secret he carried was heavier than words, heavier than anything I had imagined. I need to tell you everything, he said finally, his voice trembling. And it's not easy. I've tried to protect you from it all these years. But now, you deserve to know the truth. The whole truth. I held my breath. The silence that followed was deafening. The air thick, almost suffocating. I wanted to ask him, to demand answers. But I was too afraid. Too terrified of what he might reveal. Finally, he began. It all started after I left, he whispered. I got involved in something I never should have. People who promised power, money, a way to survive when life seemed impossible. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could outsmart them. But I was wrong. They are dangerous, Mom. I've done things I'm not proud of. Things I can't take back. And I've been running ever since. I felt my hands shake. My heart was hammering. You've been in danger? I whispered. All this time? He nodded, his eyes wet with tears. Yes, Mom. And I stayed away. Because I couldn't risk you being caught in it, too. I thought that if I disappeared, they wouldn't be able to find you. I thought I could protect you by leaving. I wanted to scream at him, to shake him, to demand that he never put himself in danger again. But I couldn't. My body was too weak, my heart too full of relief that he was alive. I don't know if I can forgive you, I whispered, but I'm so glad you're here, and I'll help you, somehow. We'll face it together. He reached for me, finally allowing himself to break, to lean into the comfort he had denied himself for 5 long years. I'm here now, Mom, he whispered, and I won't leave again. I swear it. But you need to know, the truth is darker than you can imagine. And it's not just my life at risk. It's everything we hold dear. I held him tightly, my tears soaking his shirt. My heart racing, my mind screaming, my soul whispering, we'll survive this together. We have to. And I knew. The hardest part was yet to come, because the secret he carried was a storm waiting to crash down on both of us. And in that moment, I realized that 5 years of waiting, 5 years of pain, 5 years of longing had led to this, the moment where the truth would change everything. He looked at me, eyes heavy with guilt, fear, and something I could not name, a burden too heavy for anyone to carry alone. Mom, I need to tell you everything, he said softly. Everything I've been hiding, and I need you to listen and understand. It's going to be hard, but you deserve to know the truth. I nodded, clutching his hands tightly. My heart pounded. My chest felt tight. My mind raced, but I stayed silent. I had waited for 5 years for this moment. I had to hear it all. He took a deep breath. After I left, he began, I got involved with people who were part of something dangerous, something I couldn't escape from. I tried to protect you by staying away. I thought that if you didn't know, you'd be safe. But it wasn't enough, and I've made mistakes. Terrible mistakes that I can never take back. My hands trembled. What kind of mistakes? I whispered, my voice breaking. He hesitated, eyes glistening with tears. I got mixed up with people who do things no one should ever do. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could survive it alone. But it got worse, Mom. They threatened me, and I feared they could come after you. I had no choice but to disappear. I thought if I stayed away, you'd be safe. And I was wrong. Tears poured down my face. I could barely breathe. I had imagined many scenarios, many reasons for his absence. But this was darker than anything I could have imagined. He continued, his voice trembling. I've spent 5 years running, hiding, and trying to fix the mistakes I made. I've lost friends, trust, even parts of myself. But I never stopped thinking about you. Every day, I hoped you'd forgive me someday. Every day I prayed I could come back safely. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake him, to tell him it was okay. But I couldn't speak. My heart was too full, too broken, too relieved all at once. Mom, he whispered, I've missed you more than I can ever explain. And I'm here now. I can face everything now. Because I have you. Because I can't run from you again. I pulled him into my arms. His body was trembling, but he let me hold him. I felt the years of fear, pain, and longing melt away, replaced by an overwhelming relief. You're here, I whispered, my voice shaking. That's all that matters. You're here, and I love you. Nothing else matters. He cried into my shoulder. I love you too, Mom. I've never stopped, not for a second. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, holding each other, letting the years of silence, fear, and longing vanish into the air. Finally, he pulled back slightly, wiping his tears. Mom, there's one more thing. Something I have to confess before we can truly move forward. I held my breath. My heart skipped. I wasn't just hiding from them. I was hiding from myself. From the guilt, from the shame of what I had done. I was lost, and I didn't know how to come back to the person I wanted to be, to the son you raised. I needed time, to find the courage to face you, to face the truth, to face myself. I felt my own tears fall harder. Oh, my son, you're here now. That's all I need. You're alive. You're here. Nothing else matters. We'll face everything together. I don't care what mistakes you made. I love you. Always. He looked at me, a mixture of relief and terror in his eyes. You mean that? I nodded, holding his face in my hands. I mean it. Always. Nothing could ever change that. For the first time in 5 long years, we were together. Fully. Completely. No arguments, no silence, no running, no secrets. Just the bond that had always existed, the bond of a mother and her son. We sat together on the sofa, holding hands, crying, talking softly, and sometimes just breathing. He told me everything, every moment of fear, every day of running, every sleepless night. I listened, my heart breaking and healing at the same time. By the time the sun set, the room was filled with the quiet of peace, a peace that had been absent for far too long. And I realized the past 5 years of pain, silence, and fear had led to this moment. A moment of reunion. A moment of forgiveness. A moment of truth. And as I looked at him, older, wiser, scarred, but alive, I knew one thing for certain. No matter what secrets the world held, no matter what dangers he faced, no matter how long the silence had been, our love had survived, our bond was unbroken, and finally, we could begin again.